Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, what's going on, guys? You're listening to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Casey Foreman. This show is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. A lot of cool stuff to talk about today, and yes, the NBA is officially back. I want to start out, obviously, by talking about that, but I also want to discuss in my second segment, I'm kind of calling it, what would a ring mean? Okay, what would a ring mean? I want to talk about some teams, some players, what would winning this year's championship mean for them? You don't want to miss that segment coming up next. I also want to talk about the 2020 All NBA teams because they announced this is the week. This week is the week for voters to vote on all NBA awards, all regular season awards, including the All NBA teams, which is about the regular season. So I want to give you guys my All NBA teams as well. Since that's in the news. And then make sure you stick around for my very last segment. I'm also excited for that one, because I want to talk about one of the greatest comebacks, in my opinion, in sports history. And that's involving the Virginia Cavaliers. College basketball, the Virginia Cavaliers. So don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss that segment as well. But like I said, I want to start out with the most recent news and the most important news to my audience and to, I'm guessing anyone listening to this podcast, and that is the NBA is back. Okay, we don't have the 8 seeding game, so this doesn't necessarily count towards their records, their seeding for the postseason. However, the NBA in the bubble has had or started their scrimmage games, starting to get players ready for those 8 seeding games in the postseason, because we know it starts next week. July 30th is when the games begin. So, it's starting very soon. They're trying to get the players in best shape possible. We know the only way to be in 100%, basketball shape is by playing 5-on-5 basketball. They're starting that right now competitively, in these scrimmage games. So I'm super happy about that, and I'm just excited. I got to watch basketball again. The courts look great. I want to start out by saying that as well. Much better than I thought. When I heard they'd just be playing, without fans in Orlando kind of casinos, I'm like, I was really questioning what this would look like. In some of the stadiums at least, and I was really questioning what this would look like. But they proved me wrong, and it looks much better, in my opinion, than it would have, let's say, in empty stadiums across, let's say they chose a hub city in Los Angeles and just played in the Laker, just played there in an empty stadium. I think that would have looked, much worse and would have been harder to watch in comparison to what these scrimmage games are looking like, because, I'm guessing at least what these scrimmage games are looking like is going to be very similar to what, or the exact same to what, these seeding games in the postseason is going to look like. Again, I'm impressed with the layout. It looks very professional, and you can't even really tell that there aren't, even fans there watching it. It's just a very very close up. It's really close up on the court, on the players. And it looks great. They got advertisements everywhere, so it looks great. Props to the NFL, or the NBA, I'm sorry. Props to the NBA, for getting it done and getting it done properly. And like LeBron said, it basically looks like, especially with the casino basketball, or the practice, courts, and now with these, no fan stadium courts, or, no fan courts, it really does remind me of an AAU tournament, but like LeBron said, it's an AAU tournament for old guys, basically. It's an AAU tournament for the best players in the world, and nothing is cooler than that. I'm really excited for the seeding games to start, and especially for the postseason to start. But I want to talk about some of those games and just the scrimmage games in general. These games don't mean anything. They're simply for warming up. Like I said, getting the players ready for the postseason. However, they know what they're doing as well. Just as I said, they know what they're doing for the setup. They know what they're doing with the layout for these scrimmage games. Only making them 40 minutes, instead of the original 60-minute games. Usually it's about 12. It's usually 12-minute per quarter. Usually it's 48 minutes. Sorry, not 60. Usually it's 48 minutes. They shortened it to 40 minutes. Simply 12 minutes, instead of 12 minutes, 10-minute quarters. So I love it. I love that, giving the players, it's shorter than a game, but just enough time, to get their legs underneath them and to, start getting in the real basketball shape. So I love the 10-minute quarters. I love the scrimmage games. Super pumped. And this was the first basketball and some of the, first sports, because, the MLB also just started having their games as well, which are also, which are in empty stadiums. When I compare that to what I saw in the NBA, I think their layout looks much better and more professional and much easier to watch. Less distracting with the empty stands being, again, empty and wide open. But again, this was the first basketball and some of the first sports I've watched live since March. It's been 4.5 months since we've watched basketball and seen basketball. So it's just so good. It felt so good to watch these games and to, appreciate, the NBA. And they're back safely. They got 0 positive tests. That's awesome for the NBA. A little worried with them having so many players seemingly going in and out of the bubble. They seem to be taking the right precautions, making them take so many tests and quarantine so many days when they come back. So they seem to be taking the right precautions. Have 0 positive tests. So that's a positive. No players have had corona in the bubble. So all players are healthy, and for the most part, for the games that I watched, the basketball looked pretty good. Obviously, some people and some players and some runs looked a little shaky, and it did kind of seem like they haven't played in a minute. But for the most part, they played pretty well, and it was some solid level basketball, especially for not playing in over 4 months. So props to them. They really are professionals. So like I said, they really did look. They looked like solid ball games, and now I kind of want to talk about a few of those games. The first game was the Clippers versus the kind of hometown Orlando Magic. The Clippers ended up winning the game 99-90. In large part to Lou Williams with his 22 points, kind of proving his weight, proving his value before they get their 6th Man of the Year, votes in. Like I said, they're voting for the NBA regular season awards this week. So Lou's getting, just another performance in before they send their votes in. They got to see Lou go off the bench and score 22 points and be the highlight of this Clipper team and be the biggest part of them winning this game. So Lou Williams is, like I said, the biggest part of the Clippers winning. He comes off the bench and gives you 22 points. Paul George is right there behind him at 18 points. In large part, in this Clipper victory, it was Paul George, Lou Williams. For the most part, no one else really had a notable game. Kawhi was there, didn't play too well, looked again like he hadn't played in a little while. Hit 3 threes though, was 3 for 6 from the 3-point line, had 9 points. Didn't play too much, 18, 19 minutes. No one played too much, but Lou comes out, plays 20 minutes and gets 22 points. So props to Lou. He's looking like the 6th man of the year, despite me kind of giving that award to Dennis Schroeder in my earlier podcast. Lou is also, like I said, deserving of the award, and I wouldn't be, angry if he got it, Montrez got it, or if Dennis got it. He was just the guy I picked this year, but again, it could go to Lou. But the Clippers shot, like I said, haven't played in 4 months. They shot 39% from the 3-point line. That's not bad by any means. That's pretty good for the most part. Only almost 40% from the 3-point line. That's a solid stat line, and impressive for the team to do that again after not playing for so long, and 3-point shooting really being a somewhat streaky thing at times, and for them to come back and somewhat turn it on right away. Impressive. Testament to what that team is. Again, Kawhi didn't play too well, only having 9 points. But again, hit 3 threes, 3 out of 6, 50% from the 3. Paul George hits, I think, he hit a handful of threes himself, 3 or 4 threes. And then Lou Williams, obviously, like I said, the 22 points off the bench. So those are the 3 guys who, in large part, were to do, or they were why this Clipper team ended up with the win. Let's talk about the Magic, though, because it was a very close game, as you saw, 99-90. Vucevic, obviously the best guy on this Orlando team, got 18 points, 10 rebounds, was somewhat of the highlight of this team, but not the only player that played a good game for the Magic roster. Terrence Ross went out there, got 14 points, hit a couple outside shots, so he played very well. And the Michael Carter Williams, we haven't heard about this guy in a little while, it seems like. He came out, dropped 16 points in about 20-something minutes. So props to Michael Carter Williams coming in, dropping 16 points again after not playing for so long. The Orlando Magic, if they want to keep that 8th spot, it's pretty much locked up for them, since the Nets pretty much, have lost a lot of their roster, as have the Wizards. So they basically are a lock for that 8th or 7th spot. Either way, seeing Michael Carter Williams, Vucevic, and Ross playing this well is a good sign for the Magic. And again, I do have them making the playoffs in the East. A pretty good game for both teams. Again, the Clippers get the edge. Obviously, the better team, the Clippers. Let's move on and talk about the Nuggets and the Wizards. So the Nuggets ended up beating the Wizards 89-82. In large part, Hachimura, the reason it was close, should I say, for the Wizards, Hachimura played a very good game, dropping 18 points, shooting very well from the outside, 3-point line as well, so proving his worth, shooting, both inside and out. He was, mainly the only highlight on that Wizard team. He was the biggest reason it was a close game. On that Nuggets team, how about Bol making his NBA debut, dropping 16 points, about 10 rebounds, getting blocks, dribbling the entire court, and, shooting deep threes, pulling up from deep 3. He's looking good if he can stay healthy. The ceiling is very high for Bol, a steal for the Nuggets. Also Jokic, he went out there, also dropped about 16 points, got 7 rebounds and 7 assists. What he's known for, a little bit of everything, or, kind of a lot of everything. However, it did kind of prove he hadn't played in a little while, had 8 turnovers, and he had some sloppy passes, which is expected from them not playing in so long, so not a huge knock to him, but again, 8 turnovers, not something they can keep doing. However, when you play a team like the Wizards, usually you can have a little bit of slack, and your defense will make up for that, but against some high-level teams, 8 turnovers will not do. But a couple of cool things. Again, Bol plays his first game, plays very well. Jokic starts at the point guard position. Jamal Murray doesn't play. So Jokic starts at point guard, and Bol starts at the small forward position. So the Nuggets having a starting basically 3 starters in Jokic, Bol, and Mason Plumlee, then Millsap right there as a power forward. So a whole lot of length in that roster. Playing obviously roster or centers at multiple positions. Very versatile players, a very cool lineup. So props to the Nuggets. They beat the inferior team in the Wizards. But the Wizards shot, they shot 36% from the field. Nuggets shot 44%. A little bit sloppy, but props to the Nuggets, for getting the first win of the scrimmage game, first win in 4 months. Another game I want to talk about real quickly. The Pelicans played the Nets. Was without Zion Williamson. However, he left the bubble shortly, or not too long ago actually, for some personal reasons, and he hasn't yet returned. That didn't really stop the Pelicans though. They didn't really miss a beat. They crush the Nets 99-68. The Nets simply look overmatched, overwhelmed. I think it is going to be a tough postseason, a tough seeding game schedule for them. They lost so many players, and they did get Jamal Crawford in there. They still have a couple of their guys. I think LeVert's still playing, so they still have a couple. Jared Allen, so they still have several guys, but it's going to be tough for that Nets team. Either way, they lost today. A very, kind of what you would expect, but the Pelicans shot 47% from the field, 41% from the 3-point line. So 2 very impressive stats right there. 47% from the field and 41% from the 3-point line. So 2 very impressive stats. Again, especially for not playing in 4 months, to come out and shoot almost 50% from the field and 40% from the 3. In comparison to the Nets, who shot only 36% from the field, proving they are in fact a depleted roster. With Zion, I have full faith in this Pelican team in making that 8th spot. They are my pick to make the 8th spot. I think they have a rather easy 8 seeding game schedule, and what I saw tonight, if they plug Zion in that, the sky's the limit. I see them making the 8th spot. Don't want to miss out the Heat and the Kings play. Didn't quite see the ending of that matchup. I believe the Heat got the better of the Kings, but I know it was very close down to the wire. Didn't get a chance to watch that game, however, but the Heat and Kings ended the day, the scrimmage day, the first day of basketball since March. So it was great to watch the watch basketball again, the NBA again. For those of you that watch, I would love to know your guys' opinions as well. But again, I was simply happy to see basketball back, and I was again impressed with what the stadium and the courts looked like. And again, I think the NBA is doing a very good job, and I have nothing but faith in this postseason. And they have so far, like I said, 0 positive tests for COVID-19 as of right now. Props to them. They're doing everything right, it seems like. Hopefully it can stay like that for the entirety of this bubble. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I'm going to do that one segment I was talking about, the segment I'm pretty excited for you guys to hear. I'm calling it, What Would a Ring Mean? Okay, what would a ring mean? You don't want to miss it, coming up next.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I said before the break, I'm going to do my segment, What Would a Ring Mean? I'm going to talk about some of the best players, best teams, and what winning this year's championship would do and what that would mean for them. Okay, so I'll give you guys my first example. The first team I want to talk about is the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets. Harden and Westbrook. Okay, if they were able to win this year's championship, what would it mean? Okay, obviously Harden and Westbrook are two very great individual players. Okay, but the biggest knock on them, okay, the only thing, they have missing is winning. The biggest knock on them is that, they're not good enough. Their style of play does not translate to winning in the postseason. So that has been the biggest knock on the Rockets and their two stars in Harden and Westbrook. Okay, the only thing those two guys are missing, they have the All-Star appearances, they have the MVPs. They're simply missing, an NBA championship. Both of them are in the same boat. The more knocks on them, they're both too inefficient. They're both too ball dominant is a very common one that we hear. Also when their coach, Mike D'Antoni, he's thought of very similarly. He's a good coach, but he's not able to get a team over the hump. He's made it to the finals. He's been to the postseason a whole lot in his career. He's had, some very good teams, hasn't been able to get the job done. So that's been the biggest knock on Mike D'Antoni as well. But winning this year, Harden, Westbrook, D'Antoni, winning this year would mean they, beat the narrative. They destroy the narrative that they can't win. That narrative is gone, okay? Harden, Westbrook, they get the one thing that they don't have. Like I said, the one thing they're missing, an NBA championship. And one of them gets a finals MVP on top of that. So they're simply adding to their trophy cases. And if they do win, Harden and Russ, both of them are adding to their all-time legacy. Both of them are going up in legacy points. So that, is what a ring would mean for the Houston Rockets. They would mean destroying the narrative that their two stars aren't good enough to win, that their style of play isn't good enough to win. It would destroy that narrative. Harden and Russell Westbrook's legacies go way up, and Mike D'Antoni, he is officially a championship caliber coach, and his small ball, the thing everyone's been criticizing, the thing everyone has seemed to have an opinion on this year, that small ball, the trade for Clint Capella, if they win this year's championship, that means that the small ball paid off and it worked out, in the biggest way, in the best way possible in an NBA championship. So that is what a ring would mean for the Houston Rockets, okay? Let's move on to the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors, if they go on to win this year's championship, what would the ring mean for them? Well, they go on to win their second championship in team history. Okay, in team history, obviously last year with Kawhi, their first championship in their team's history up there in Toronto. Never before have they made it to the finals nor won a finals. They did both of those things last year. Bang, bang. Okay, both of them got done. This year, they have a chance, okay, not the best chance, but, nonetheless, they have a chance to be one of the few teams that have gone back to back in this league. Okay, that's definitely a hard thing to do. More notable, thinking about it, more recently, the Warriors did it, the Heat did it. I'm trying to think back before. Maybe the Lakers were before that, maybe the Spurs at one point, but not something that gets brought up too much in NBA history, and the Toronto Raptors could go and get their second NBA title in franchise history, also their second NBA title in a row. Also, the other, one of the coolest aspects to this for Toronto would be that erases the narrative that Kawhi came to your city and saved you, and he was the entire reason that you guys won the championship. That is a narrative out there, and it somewhat erases the narrative that, Toronto is a losing franchise when it comes to the postseason. What we think of is underachieving and losing, when they should at least put up, in my opinion, more of a fight, in their past. But if they go and win back-to-back championships, it's erasing the narrative of the choking in the postseason for Toronto. It's also erasing the narrative of Kawhi being the only reason you won the championship. You're never going to get there again. It erases that narrative. That is what a ring would mean for Toronto. All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, what would a ring mean for them? The Boston Celtics. So, a lot of young players, okay? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, a lot of young guys on that team. A lot of young leaders on that team. If they go and win the NBA Finals on the biggest stage possible, all eyes on them, basketball is returned. Obviously, there's going to be a whole lot of people watching this. So if the Boston Celtics with their young stars, okay, or with their young, soon-to-be stars at least, if they go and win the NBA Finals, especially Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they are going to be officially stars in this league, and they're going to be all-stars going forward. They're going to be they're going to get the recognition they will deserve if they go and win this year's championship. Their young players become stars on the biggest stage possible. Kemba, his first year away from Charlotte after spending his entire career there and losing his first year away, he goes and wins a championship with a legendary franchise like the Boston Celtics. Okay, Brad Stevens, he proves that he is in fact a top coach in this league that can win a championship. He can't just be good in the regular season. He can be good in the postseason as well. He can prove that. Boston also establishes themselves. This is a little scary, okay? Listening to this, they can establish themselves as the best team in the Eastern Conference for years to come. And again, that's saying they win the finals this year. And if they in fact do that, they'd have to go through Milwaukee. They have to go through either the Clippers or the Lakers. So if they can beat those teams, they have to beat both of those teams at the very least, 2 out of the 3. If they can do that, easily at least, or they can do it, man, in my opinion, they're the best team in the East, and it's scary for years to come. I'm thinking a possible dynasty, years to come, if this team, how young they are, can go and win a championship already. And again, how young they are for years to come, I'm scared, for the Eastern Conference especially. It's getting nothing but better, and if they can go and win a championship this year, man, like I said, the Eastern Conference better look out, and it means Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and also, Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, I'll throw him in there. They're going to be stars, they're going to be thought of even higher, in a higher regard than they are now, rightfully so. That is what a ring would mean for the Boston Celtics. All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's go Lakers. What would a ring mean for the Lakers? So, obviously, Los Angeles adds to their collection of championships, and they basically they establish themselves as, they maintain themselves as the most popular team in Los Angeles and the best team in Los Angeles. LeBron goes and gets his 4th ring, his 4th championship. I'm guessing his 4th Finals MVP. That will be his 3rd title on a 3rd team, so he'll be the first player ever, if he wins this year, to win 3 titles on 3 different teams. And if he wins the MVP, he'll also be the first player to win 3 Finals MVPs on 3 different teams. He'll also do it in both the East and the Western Conference. Not something too many players have done. So, so that's what it means for LeBron as well. And, not just the 4th ring and being the 3rd, or the first player ever to do it on 3 different teams. Those stats might make the king the GOAT, possibly, depending on how it looks, how he plays, how it all plays out. we could very well be saying the King is the GOAT by the end of this. Who knows? I'm not saying he is right now, or, for all you Jordan lovers out there, chill out. I'm not saying it's over if he wins this year. I'm just saying we very well, we see it now. I think we definitely will see more of it if he wins this year's championship. Anthony Davis goes and gets his first ring ever. He starts establishing himself as a superstar in this league. Proves he is the Robin to LeBron's Batman, the best Batman in the league. He can be the best Robin in the league. He can prove that and prove he can do it on the best, brightest stage possible. They can become a legendary Laker duo, duos we talk about. They can be right there on those lists. So, and you talk about another player, Kyle Kuzma. If he can play well, his stock does nothing but rise. For trades, for his contract situation with LA, his stock nothing but rises if they win the championship, if he plays well. And best case scenario, you guys win, and I doubt Anthony Davis leaves a championship roster. So Anthony Davis probably stays long term in Los Angeles if the Lakers win this year. Another benefit. That is what a ring would mean for the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's go to the Milwaukee Bucks. For the Milwaukee Bucks, what would it mean? It means Giannis would have to go and beat LeBron and Anthony Davis, or Kawhi and Paul George, or, Harden and Russell Westbrook in the finals. He has to beat two arguably stars, if not superstars in this league, paired up together against him 1-2. You guys know my opinion on Chris Middleton. In my opinion, not a star in this league. But an all-star, sure. Not a star. But if Giannis wins, it means he beats Anthony Davis and LeBron, or it means he beats, more than likely, Kawhi and Paul George. He gets his first championship, obviously I'm guessing he gets his first finals MVP, and he proves he can do it alone. He doesn't need another superstar playing with him to win a championship. He can do that in today's league where you need a couple of those guys to win a championship. He can prove that has gone away, or that it will go away with him. He's going to start making people team up similar to Golden State trying to take down LeBron. People are going to have to team up to take down Giannis if he can do this. So that's a huge thing. He proves he can do it by himself. He probably stays in Milwaukee long term as well. Why would he leave a championship roster anytime soon? And in the best player of the world discussion, he probably moves up in that discussion. If he does in fact beat LeBron, he probably gets moved up to the number one player in the world. It's gonna be hard for Giannis to carry the Bucks, but man, Giannis to be the best player in the world, that's what a ring could mean for Giannis and the Bucks. And they could, extend their guy in Giannis for years to come. So that's what a ring could mean for the Bucks. And for the last team I want to talk about, obviously, the Los Angeles Clippers. For them to win, it would mean they're finally the best and, should be the most popular team in Los Angeles for the first time ever. They get their first championship in franchise history. Kawhi proves he was the reason Toronto wins last year. The opposite to Toronto winning, if Kawhi and the Clippers win, he proves he was the reason they won last year. He becomes the first player ever to win 3 finals MVPs and 3 finals on 3 different teams, also in both the East and Western Conference. His all-time stock, his all-time status does nothing but rise as well in Kawhi. Not just Kawhi, though. Paul George. This makes Paul George a definite Hall of Famer, getting a championship, being the second best player on a championship team. A borderline Hall of Famer in Paul George, in my opinion. If he can go out and do this, he's a Hall of Famer, so that's what it does for Paul George. Doc Rivers goes out and gets his second championship as a head coach, proves he is a championship head coach wherever he goes. They prove that the front office, we know how good that front office is. They prove how important the front office is in the NBA. That's not something that always gets talked about. and they become the overall favorite, in my opinion, next year and for years going forward to win the title. If they win this year, in my opinion, they become the favorite next year, especially if it's in dominant fashion. And Lou Will said it best. Has there ever been a team with two guys scoring 18 plus points per game coming off the bench, and then in the starting lineup you have two superstars in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard? Okay, don't know if that's ever happened before, and they also can prove that load management works in the NBA. So that's what a ring would mean for the Los Angeles Clippers. Okay, let me know what you guys thought about that segment. I was super excited for that one. Coming up next, I'm going to take a quick break. Coming up next, though, we're going to break down the All NBA, our 2020 regular season All NBA teams. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright guys, like I said before the break, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the 2020 NBA, or 2020 All NBA teams, okay? The voting is going on the July 21st through the 28th, so this week, okay? It's going on this week. They also announced that they will be announcing the awards, the regular season awards. I'm guessing these, achievements as well. They're announcing them during the NBA postseason, so we do not have to wait until after the NBA postseason like we have had to do the past couple of seasons. So that's a pro. We get to find out pretty soon, and they're voting right now. However, the voting only obviously has to do with the start of the regular season up until the stoppage March 11th-ish. That is when, people stop looking. These 8 seeding games don't matter when we're talking about these awards. That should be taken into consideration, only a regular season thing. So what I want to do, I've seen, multiple other people do it. I want to give you guys my 2020 All NBA teams. Let's start out with the best team this year in this league. The first team All NBA. Let's start out with the guards. My first guard, I have James Harden as my first guard on my NBA first team. This year, averaging 34 points, 7 assists, and despite adding a all-star, ball-dominant player in Russell Westbrook, still averaging 34 points a game, still getting 7 assists per game as well. So James Harden, one of the best guards in the league today, obviously this season. My other guard, and this was so tough for me because LeBron, he's technically a guard, right? He's playing point guard all season. However, he's always listed as a power or as a forward because he is technically a small forward. So he's always listed as a small forward. So you can't really call him a guard despite him always playing the point guard position. So at the other guard position this year, I have to go with Luka Doncic. I don't think there are two guards or another, playing better than Luka. Maybe James, but Luka in his second season, averaging 28, almost 29 points per game, 9, almost 10 rebounds, 8, almost 9 assists per game. Okay, he's the reason we see the Mavericks at 40 wins and 7th in the Western Conference. They're tied with the 4th spot, basically, at 40 wins. So he's the reason. He's in large part why. He's been bringing them along all year, him and Kristaps, but he's 28, 9, and 8. In his second year, I think he's deserving. He's top 3, arguably in MVP voting. I think he's deserving of first team All-NBA this season. All right, let's talk about my first forward. My first forward, I got to go with the guy in his 17th year in LA, LeBron James. 25 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds. The first seed in the Western Conference. I believe he was the number 1 vote getter. Again, so he's just the most popular player in the league today. In my opinion, the best player in the league today. He's my forward on my NBA first team, or at least my first forward at 25, 10, and 8. Again, despite him usually playing the point guard position, I wanted to put him at the guard position, but he's always listed at forward. I want to keep it, the same way the NBA is. I don't want to change anything. So LeBron's my first forward. The other forward, I gotta go with Giannis, the other guy in the MVP race. He's averaging 30 points. 13 rebounds per game, almost 6 assists, getting a steal, a block. So he's playing good on both sides of the ball, has the best PER in the league. Again, top, vote getter probably for the MVP award, has the best record in the NBA, him and the Milwaukee Bucks. So he, this season, obviously being the lead runner for MVP, has to be on the first team or All-NBA, and he's my other forward on this list. Center, Anthony Davis. Okay, I gotta go with AD. He's a power forward or center. He could be listed as either, so I'm putting him at the center position. He's averaging 26, 10, 2.5 blocks a game. He's the defensive anchor, arguably the defensive player of the year this year. Is a huge part to do with the Lakers, who was one of the worst defenses in basketball last year. This year, they're 3rd in defense. So that's in large part to do with Anthony Davis. He's the best center when he plays center in the NBA, or at least this season he's been the best. So he's my center for my first team All-NBA. Yes. I know what you guys are saying. The alarm bells are going off. Kawhi Leonard was not on my first team All-NBA. Yes, before you guys freak out, Kawhi's a forward, okay? He's a forward. If he was a guard, I would put him in there over Luka, despite Luka having a better season, or, a better statistical season in basically every category, and, not being too far off in the win-loss column. But I would put him at the guard position, but similar to LeBron, I'm keeping this legit. I'm keeping this real. Kawhi is a forward. He's listed as a small forward. And I don't have him over LeBron, and I don't have him over Giannis this season. So Kawhi just misses out. Okay, he just misses out on my first team All-NBA. But yes, he is on my second team. Don't freak out. Kawhi is fantastic, okay? Simply not good enough, he's more of a postseason guy. We know that. He doesn't care too much about the regular season. Okay? But despite not caring too much, he's still on my second team All-NBA. Let's go ahead and talk about that team. So, second team All-NBA. My first guard, I gotta go with Dame Lillard. This year averaging 29 points, 8 assists, despite his team being, negative in the win-loss column. He's the best player in Portland. They're still in the playoff hunt. He's an All-NBA, All-Star caliber point guard. He's been first-team All-NBA. He's been to the Western Conference Finals. We see him averaging 29 points, 8 assists this year. So he is one of the best point guards in the league today. He's my first guard on my second-team All-NBA. He's also on the cover of 2K21, so shout out to Dame Lillard. My second guard on my second team All-NBA, I'm going with Russell Westbrook, okay? He's averaging 27 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, 47% from the floor. He was disrespected recently by the certain report that listed him as the 22nd best player. I laugh at that somewhat, and I cannot list you 20 players better than Russell Westbrook in the league today. I can't list you that many guards better than Westbrook in the league today. For that reason, he's on my NBA second team, all NBA second team. Again, 27, 7, and 8. His first year in Houston shouldn't be something that you forget about. It's his first year in Houston, still getting 27, 7, and 8 with an all-star, all NBA guy like James Harden. So Westbrook is my second guard. Yes, my first forward, you Kawhi fans, Kawhi Leonard. He's only, again, not on my first team because he's listed as a forward. If he was a guard, he would be on there. But again, he's a forward. I have him on my All-NBA second team. He's averaging 27, 5, and 7. The second seed in the Western Conference, the Western Conference in the Los Angeles Clippers. Arguably, he's on the best team in the league on paper. Obviously 27, 5, and 7, a great season for Kawhi. He's on my second team All-NBA. Other forward position, what he's doing this year, his team's second in the Eastern Conference. I gotta go with Pascal Siakam in Toronto. 23 and 7. He is the best player on that Toronto team this year. They're second in the Eastern Conference. Haven't necessarily skipped a beat without Kawhi. He's the biggest reason why. I didn't mean to rhyme there. But he's averaging 23 and 7. Pascal Siakam is on my second team All-NBA as a forward. My center on my second team, I gotta go with Nikola Jokic, okay? The Joker this year, 20 points, 7 assists, 10 rebounds, had a really good end of the season run. We saw him slim down over the NBA hiatus. That's not the reason he's on this, but either way, one of the top centers in basketball. He can pass, shoot, and rebound, so he's very versatile, can do it all. The best player, in that on that Nugget team. And he's in large part to do with their success. And he is as a center on my second team All-NBA. Let's move on to the third team All-NBA, all the guys that haven't been listed yet. Let's see if I get the guys you guys are waiting for, okay? So my NBA third team. I, at the guard position, went with CP3 Chris Paul. Yes, Chris Paul. He is the biggest reason that the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team we all thought that would be tanking this season, he's the biggest reason that they are the 4th seed in the Western Conference. They just traded away their best players, obviously, in Paul George, and their franchise player in Russell Westbrook. They recently lost Kevin Durant years back, so a team we thought would be rebuilding, still in the postseason, still making a run, in large part to do with the veteran in Chris Paul. So he is he's averaging 17, 7, and 5. 4th seed in the West. Chris Paul is my guard, my first guard for my NBA third team. My other guard, the win-loss column doesn't always matter in this, to me at least. Like I said with Damian Lillard, okay, with Damian Lillard, he's negative in the win-loss column right now, as is the guy I picked, for my second guard on my All-NBA third team, in Bradley Beal. Okay, he might be negative in the win-loss column right now, but okay, he's averaging 30 points and 6 assists. He's the only player on his team averaging more than 16 points a game. He's, again, the only highlight of that Washington Wizards roster. 30 points, 6 assists. He is deserving. He was snubbed of the All-Star team this year. I won't allow that. I'm giving him the recognition he deserves. St. Louis guy. Bradley Beal is on my NBA third team. Next on my first forward, Jimmy Butler. This year, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, moved to the Miami Heat. Not a move too many people respected, not a move too many people thought would lead to wins. He has laughed at those people. We see him succeeding in Miami and them being not a threat to win it all, but a very good team in that Eastern Conference and a team that could even give a team like Milwaukee some trouble. We see them beating Milwaukee in the regular season several times. So in large part to do with Jimmy Butler, the culture they have in Milwaukee or in Miami, he's bought in. He is on my NBA third team. My other forward has got to be Jason Tatum, what he's doing on the Boston Celtics. He has been the best player on the Celtics this year, 23-7 for Jason Tatum. He's breaking out as a star in this league. You heard me talking about what does a ring mean? What would it mean if he won? It means he would be an ultimate star in this league. I think he already is on the hinge of being a superstar in this league. 23-7, highlight of that Boston Celtic team, Jason Tatum, playing great before the season stopped. He is on my NBA third team. My last guy, my center for the third team, I gotta go with Rudy Gobert, the Stifle Tower, okay? Having a career year, 15 points, 13, almost 14 rebounds per game, 2 blocks. So he's having a career year. He's arguably the third, fourth best center, second or toss him wherever you want him in the center conversation. He's up there, and he's on my All-NBA third team as a center. So those are my first, second, and third teams. Some notable snubs in quotes, you could say. You could say a guy like Chris Middleton, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, Trae Young, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. Those are my honorable mentions. Didn't quite make the list. I'll mention you. You guys had great seasons as well. Not quite as good in my opinion as the guys I listed on the list. So those are my teams. I'd love to know what you guys think as well. We'll have to find out who lands where. It will be sooner rather than later, though, because we will be hearing these awards, these things announced during the NBA postseason. So I can't wait for that. Starts July 30th, obviously, so can't wait for that. We'll hear, obviously, sooner rather than later. Let me take a quick break, my final break, and come back with my final segment talking about one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. Don't miss it. I'm going to be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back, guys, for the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. On this podcast, one thing I haven't done in a while is talk about college basketball. Obviously, we didn't have, much of a season this year. We didn't have a tournament this year. Very disappointing. So I want to talk about the reigning champs in the Virginia Cavaliers and their comeback story, which in my opinion is one of the greatest, comeback stories in sports history. I want to discuss that, break it down, because I'm a fan of the Virginia Cavaliers, especially what they did the last year. So let's break it down and talk about why it was such a great comeback. Okay, so in the 2018 season, 2018 season. They go 31-3. They're the first, they're the number one seed in the ACC, the best record in the ACC. They were the Sorry, I don't want to bring that up. Yeah, but they're the best record in the ACC. They go 31-3, an impressive season for Tony Bennett and his Cavaliers, and led by Kyle Guy at the time. Led by Kyle Guy. They, obviously being the first seed, then go on to play the 16 seed in the tournament, in the March Madness tournament. They then go on to be the first seed ever, the first seed ever to lose to a 16 seed. So the best team possible, basically, playing, or one of the best teams possible, lost to one of the worst teams possible for the first time in NCAA history. Okay, Virginia lost. They had high hopes to win the tournament, obviously fell much shorter of that, obviously with the first round exit, which again, the first in NCAA history. I don't want to dwell on the negatives though, because like I told you, it's a comeback story. It's all about what they came back and did in spite of that horrible, gut-wrenching loss. It's what they did in spite of that the following year. The following year, they go 35-3. They go on to win the national championship. They beat Oklahoma, Oregon, Purdue, Auburn, Texas Tech, some highly ranked teams. They have some very close games. A couple go to overtime. Some have some buzzer-beating finishes. So it was some very intense games, some very close finishes for the Virginia Cavaliers in a whole lot of their games. In their final game, okay, to clinch this comeback of embarrassment, the year prior, the biggest embarrassment possible in when you're talking about or college basketball, they literally did the most embarrassing thing possible in losing to a 16 seed as a 1 seed. So after having that season, following it up with one of the most impressive outs of basketball that I've ever seen, again, making it one of the best comebacks I have ever seen. I know in that final game, Kyle Guy goes out, shoots, I don't have the percentage, but he shoots a great percentage from the field, gets 24 points, hits some clutch free throws for them I think that was against Auburn, he hits the clutch free throws. Anyway, he plays a great game. DeAndre Hunter hits some clutch shots. He has 27 and 9 in the championship game. Ty Jerome, the point guard that seems to tie it all together. Ty Jerome had no pun there, but he goes and gets 16 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds. So Kyle Guy, DeAndre Hunter, Ty Jerome, the big three for that Virginia roster, for that team, show up, play some of their best basketball in Cavalier uniforms, and win the national title. Obviously, they go, like I said, from being the biggest embarrassment, one of the biggest embarrassing teams in NCAA history. They go from that to being the champs and having a historical run, clinching a historical comeback. Again, in my opinion, making it one of the best and one of my favorite comebacks in sports history, to be the most embarrassing, to be the champs, the best possible. Insane. I cannot believe Virginia did it. As a guy who has supported Virginia, my family is actually Virginia fans, a team we've been supporting for years now. To have it pay off, we are all super psyched. Virginia's a team I usually pick to win the national championship in a hope, hoping they can pull off some upsets. Just again, not necessarily as who I think will win, but as who I hope will win. And it paid off last year. I picked Virginia to win. They go on to win. No, it's neither here or there. I actually ended up losing my NCAA tournament bracket because someone else had them winning as well, but had another matchup that I didn't. Even though I had Virginia winning, I still end up losing my bracket. Even though, it's the first year Virginia ever won that I've picked them, and I still lose the brackets. Kind of seems like my luck, but either way, was one of my favorite things to watch, one of my favorite comebacks in sports history. The only thing Not the only thing, but the other thing that comes to mind when I think of, awesome comebacks, historical comebacks, obviously LeBron's comeback from 3-1 against the Golden State Warriors. Me, I do like Golden State a whole lot, so I was a little bit upset about that, but me also being a big LeBron fan, I was super excited for him, and I was able to acknowledge right then in the moment, this is one of the greatest, if not the greatest comeback I have ever seen. So that's another, just for a little tidbit of information for you guys before I end the show, that's another one of my favorite comebacks in sports history. But Virginia Cavaliers, they're the reigning champs with no with no NCAA tournament this year, so they're still the champs in my book. I wanted to give them some recognition. I saw Kyle Guy playing tonight in the Kings against the Heat scrimmage game. It was cool to see him knocking down some 3-point shots. So shout out to the Who's, go Who's, and shout out to the Virginia Cavaliers again, making one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. That's going to be it for the GSMC Basketball Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I want to urge you to go check us out on Facebook, check us out on Twitter. Also, again, if you enjoyed today's podcast, leave us a review or a comment. We would really appreciate that. Thank you all for the continued support. This is my last podcast for the week, but I'll be right back here on Monday next week giving you guys the most updated, news in the NBA, and we're going to be even closer to the start of the NBA next week, so I'm assuming we're going to have even more news. So I'll see you guys again next week. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you stick it here at the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.